It was a tough, heavy day for the Pittsburgh Steelers community, and for everyone who's ever crossed paths with Dale Loi. The kind of day that doesn't just hit hard but lingers. A weight in your chest that doesn't lift easily. Because yesterday, the football world lost not just a professional, not just a journalist, but a true workhorse, a respected voice, and for many, a dear friend. Dale passed away after a long and brutal fight against cancer, taken far too soon at the age of 56. And before we dive into anything football-related, because we all know that Dale would eventually want us to go there, let's pause and think about his family, his wife Amy, his 3 children, and everyone who loved him. The pain they're feeling is unimaginable, and our thoughts go out to them in this incredibly difficult time. Now, if you knew Dale, or even if you just followed his work, you knew one thing for sure. The man was all about football. He didn't want a spotlight on himself. He wouldn't have wanted a big fuss made in his honor. He would have wanted the work to continue. That's who he was. He was a grinder, a professional, someone who never clocked out mentally, especially during the football season. There's a reason why people respected him. It wasn't just about the articles, the podcasts, or the takes. It was about the way he carried himself. Dale didn't chase attention. He chased the story. And he did it with a passion and persistence that's rare in any field, let alone sports journalism. Back in the early days of DK Pittsburgh sports, when the operation was still a scrappy startup with big dreams and very little structure, Dale stepped into that world like the adult in the room. This was around 2014, 2015, when the Penguins were hoisting Stanley Cups, and the money seemed endless. But behind the scenes, it was chaos. There were no HR policies, no defined roles, no real business model. Just a bunch of reporters chasing stories and hoping for the best. That's when Dale arrived, not just as a writer, but as a stabilizing force. He brought professionalism, consistency, and a kind of grounded perspective that every growing company desperately needs. He didn't get caught up in the hype or the noise. He focused on the work, and he helped shape the culture from the inside out. And when I say he worked, I mean he worked. Dale was relentless. He covered every practice, every camp, every game. He never took days off, not in football season. I was the one making the schedules, and yet every time I looked at his name on the calendar, I might as well have been writing it for myself. There was no need to check in, no need to remind him. He was already there, notebook in hand, eyes locked in. The dude was as committed as they come. He saw his job as being your eyes and ears inside the world of the Steelers. He didn't just report the news. He lived it, dissected it, and delivered it with clarity and authority. Even in his final weeks, when cancer had taken away so much from him physically, he kept writing. He was texting, watching what he could, processing, analyzing. The pain never silenced the professional in him. Just this past weekend, he was still sending messages, still engaging with the team, still producing thoughtful work. That tells you everything you need to know about Dale Loi. Most people would have stepped back. Most people would have said, "I've done enough." Not Dale. He was writing analytical pieces for Steelers.com from his bed. He wasn't mailing it in. He wasn't throwing hot takes at the wall. He was crafting well-thought-out breakdowns. That's respect for the audience. That's respect for the game. That's Dale. His final piece, published on August 29th, was classic Dale. It was his 5 for Friday, a series of observations that went beyond the surface level. He led with a strong take on the Steelers coverage unit, pointing out the potential of having 3 top-tier corners, Darius Slay, Jalen Ramsey, and Joey Porter Jr., on the field together. He wasn't just impressed with their individual talents, but with the strategic flexibility they could offer. He predicted that this trio could form one of the most disruptive secondaries in the league, capable of man coverage, zone concepts, turnovers, sacks, you name it. He did, however, add caveats. He noted that Joey Porter Jr. still had some development ahead of him, that health was always a wild card, and that the scheme could make or break it all. And unfortunately, as we've seen early in the season, some of those warnings are proving true. Slay and Ramsey have struggled, not because they've lost a step, but because the scheme has boxed them in. Predictability in coverage is killing the momentum, and Dale, even from afar, saw it coming. He also highlighted Black, a player who has quietly become one of the most intriguing stories on the roster. It wasn't just about his size or speed. Dale wrote that when Black made plays, even in preseason action, it looked like the game naturally flowed to him. He called it out. The game is not too big for him. It just comes to him. That's the kind of insight that you only get from someone who knows what they're watching. It's subtle. It's instinctual. And it's the kind of thing Dale always picked up on. He saw what others missed, and he wrote about it without fluff or exaggeration. His third point circled back to health, reinforcing how easily a promising season could unravel if key players couldn't stay on the field. Again, the man wasn't trying to be negative. He was just realistic. He was always trying to help readers stay grounded, even when optimism was running high. Then came Calvin Austin. Dale was one of his biggest believers. While some fans dismissed him as just another slot guy, Dale saw something more. He saw toughness. He saw heart. He called him, pound for pound, maybe the toughest guy on the team, if not in the entire league. And guess what? That toughness showed up when it mattered. In that season-opening win in East Rutherford, Austin bounced back from hits like a fighter. Dale didn't just predict it. He knew it. He saw Austin not just as a contributor, but as someone who could settle the so-called WR2 debate. In his eyes, that role was Austin's for the taking. Finally, he talked about Derek Harmon and how lucky the team was that his knee injury wasn't worse. At the time, it looked scary, but Dale highlighted that Harmon's quick return to practice was not just encouraging. It was essential. He saw that player as someone who could immediately contribute, especially with injuries already testing the team's depth. He ended that last piece with one sentence. Let's kick this season off. Simple, positive, hopeful. That was Dale, always leaning into the brighter side, always keeping the conversation focused and constructive. And that's what made him such a joy to work with, to read, to listen to. Steelers Nation Radio, post-game shows, podcasts, you name it. His voice was steady, clear, and never about ego. It was about the truth, about giving fans the best possible insight, win or lose. Dale will be missed, not just because he was good at his job, not just because of how many stories he broke or how many columns he wrote, but because of who he was. He was the voice of reason when emotions ran high. He was the pro in the room when others got carried away. He made every team he was part of better, whether that was a newsroom, a press box, or a podcast studio. And if you ever stood next to him after a game, watching him break it all down with clarity and poise while others ranted and raved, you know exactly what I mean. You could feel it in the messages that came pouring in after the news broke. People weren't just mourning a journalist. They were grieving a connection, a presence, a voice that had become part of their Steelers routine. Whether it was post-game breakdowns, audio hits, or just reading his written words, Dale had this rare ability to make you feel like you were in the room with him. His writing wasn't flashy. It didn't need to be. It was precise, confident, and built on a foundation of watching, listening, and understanding. He didn't waste words, but every word he wrote carried weight. Some of the tributes that came in were from readers, regular people who had never met Dale but felt like they knew him anyway. One person wrote about how Dale's podcast with Matt Williamson on Steelers Nation Radio was one of the few shows they never missed. Said it had this perfect balance, one guy with a fire, the other with a steady hand. That steady hand was Dale, always guiding the conversation back to logic, back to football, back to what actually happened on the field. And that's something people need more than they even realize, especially after a loss, when emotions are sky high. You don't want someone just throwing gas on the fire. You want someone to calm you down, to walk you through it, to help you see it for what it really was. That was Dale's role, time and time again. Another message talked about how Dale never lost his edge. He wasn't just clocking in and going through the motions. He cared deeply about what he did. Even in the comment section of DK Pittsburgh Sports, a place where things could get, let's say, spirited, Dale would show up. Not just to defend his work, but to engage, to clarify, to argue when necessary. He read everything. He paid attention. And sometimes, maybe he took a little too personally. But that's what made him who he was. He gave a damn. And readers could tell. There's one story I keep coming back to. After games on the road, Dale and I would do those post-game shows. sometimes standing in parking lots, sometimes in empty stadiums, just trying to break it all down while the adrenaline was still high. And I'd be going off. I'd be mad about a call or a coaching decision. I want heads to roll, and Dale would just listen. He didn't interrupt. He didn't push back right away. He'd wait, let the steam blow off, then he'd gently step in and bring it all back to reality. He had this calm presence, and it wasn't forced, it was who he was. That balance made the show work. It made everything work. And here's the part that hits even harder. Dale knew what he meant to people. He knew that fans respected him. He wasn't chasing approval, but he wasn't blind to the impact he had either. That's why he kept going, even in pain. Even when the physical toll became overwhelming, he kept showing up in whatever way he could. The man was writing about football while fighting cancer. Think about that. Not because someone asked him to, not because he needed the money, but because he still had something to say. Because he loved the game, and he loved being a voice within that world. He also knew how to mentor without ever calling it that. Nobody would say Dale was the guy giving pep talks or handing out advice left and right. That wasn't his style. But just being around him, watching how he worked, how he handled the day-to-day grind, that was the lesson. Younger reporters learned by observing him. How he prepared, how he dealt with players, with coaches, with press conferences. He didn't play games. He didn't ask questions to hear himself talk. He asked questions that got answers. And that's the kind of stuff that sticks with you. If you're in the industry and you were lucky enough to be in a press room with Dale, you left that room a little better. One of the most powerful messages came from someone who worked with Dale early in his career back in Oil City. Said he was already a tireless worker back then, that he had this determination from the very beginning, a mindset that never faded no matter how far his career took him. And that's something to think about. Some people burn out. Some people lose their edge after years in the business. Dale never did. He wasn't jaded. He wasn't cynical. He was sharp until the very end. Still watching film. Still texting takes. Still writing pieces that made people stop and think. Even in the face of this brutal disease, he stayed positive. He didn't want people to feel sorry for him. He wanted to be part of the team. He wanted to contribute. He wanted to be where the action was, whether it was at training camp in Latrobe or on the sideline for a preseason game. And when he couldn't be there physically, he still found ways to stay close to the game. Still found ways to give fans something real. He was doing what he loved all the way to the finish line. I think that's what people will remember most. Not just that he was good at his job, but that he never stopped doing it. That he gave everything he had until he had nothing left to give. That kind of commitment is rare. That kind of heart is rare. And in a business where voices come and go all the time, Dale's voice was one that stuck. One that earned respect across the board. From fans, from colleagues, from players and coaches. When someone like that is gone, you don't just lose a reporter. You lose a part of the fabric. You lose a thread in a larger story of what it means to follow a team, to live and breathe the ups and downs of a franchise year after year. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. The NFL rumor mill is ablaze this morning with whispers that could reshape the Steelers' identity for the upcoming season. Sources close to the team hint at an unprecedented double shakeup. Star wide receiver Chase Hill and defensive titan Aaron Ramsey might be arriving in Pittsburgh together. If true, this would be nothing short of a blockbuster move, a seismic shift that could catapult the Steelers into serious Super Bowl contention. Hill, known for his jaw-dropping speed and uncanny ability to find space in even the tightest coverage, would instantly transform the Steelers' offense. Quarterback play has long been a question mark, but adding a weapon of Hill's caliber could elevate any signal caller, providing the vertical threat and explosive plays that have eluded Pittsburgh for years. The rumors suggest that Hill could slot into the starting lineup immediately, potentially redefining the team's passing game from day one. On the other side of the ball, Ramsey's arrival would shore up a defense that has struggled to maintain dominance against elite competition. With his combination of size, speed, and instinct, Ramsey can patrol the secondary or act as a versatile linebacker hybrid, making the Steelers' defensive schemes suddenly much more unpredictable and intimidating. League insiders suggest that pairing RAMSEY with the current defensive core could create one of the most feared units in the AFC, capable of disrupting even the most balanced offenses. What makes this alleged pairing even more tantalizing is the timing. The Steelers will be addressing both sides of the ball simultaneously. Fans and analysts alike are buzzing over the idea of a team that can strike as explosively on offense as it can suffocate on defense. The whispers also hint at an aggressive front office willing to gamble for immediate results, signaling that Pittsburgh might not just be planning for the future. They want to win now. While nothing is confirmed, the buzz is impossible to ignore. Social media is already erupting with speculation about how the Steelers would deploy Hill and RAMSEY together, and betting markets are reacting to the possibility of a transformative roster move. Should the deal go through, it would not only make headlines, but could shift the balance of power in the AFC North entirely. One thing is clear. The Steelers' rumor mill has never been this electrifying. Hill and RAMSEY arriving together would be more than a headline. It would be a declaration that Pittsburgh is ready to dominate on all fronts. The football world will be watching closely, and fans are already dreaming of a season where offense and defense collide in perfect harmony. Could this be the dawn of a new Steelers dynasty? Only time will tell. But for now, the city is buzzing, the market has exploded, and the rumor has set the NFL world on fire. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Pittsburgh Steelers, make sure to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.